Good morning and welcome to the Greater Bethlehem Temple Apostolic Church Christian Education Intermediate class. I am your lesson guide, Sister Casey Fisher. So today we're going to continue talking about one of the coolest stories in the Bible, the story of Daniel's friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. We know that they faced one of the scariest situations in their lives, but still trusted God completely through it all. Are you ready to learn more? Let's go. So today I'm going to be reading Daniel chapter 3, verses 19 through 28 from the New Living Translation. The blazing furnace. Nebuchadnezzar was so furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego that his face became distorted with rage. He commanded the furnace be heated 7 times hotter than usual. Then he ordered some of the strongest men of his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the blazing furnace. So they tied them up and threw them into the furnace, fully dressed in their pants, turbans, robes, and other garments. And because the king, in his anger, had demanded such a hot fire in the furnace, the flames killed the soldiers as they threw the 3 men in. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, securely tied, fell into the roaring flames. But suddenly, Nebuchadnezzar jumped up in amazement and exclaimed to his advisors, "Didn't we throw and tie up 3 men and throw them into the furnace?" "Yes, your majesty, we certainly did," they replied. "Look," Nebuchadnezzar shouted, "I see 4 men unbound walking around in the fire, unharmed. And the 4th looks like a god." Then Nebuchadnezzar came as close as he could to the door of the flaming furnace and shouted, "Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, come out, come here." So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stepped out of the fire. Then the high officials, officers, governors, and advisors crowded around them and saw that the fire had not touched them. Not a hair on their head was singed, and their clothing was not scorched. They didn't even smell of smoke. Then Nebuchadnezzar said, "Praise to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He sent his angel to rescue his servants who trusted him. They defied the king's command and were willing to die rather than serve or worship any god except their own God." Oh, okay, let's jump into this. I don't know if I could have handled that. King Nebuchadnezzar was really angry because these 3 guys refused to worship his golden statue, a statue. He ordered that they be thrown into the fiery furnace. He was so mad that he even turned the heat up 7 times hotter than it usually is. I mean, have you ever been in a situation where someone was so angry with you for standing up for what was right? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego didn't give in. They stood strong and trusted God would protect them, no matter what. Imagine this. The fire was so hot that the guards who threw them in the furnace died from the heat. But Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they were just walking around in the flames, unharmed. And guess what? A 4th person was in the fire when they only threw in 3. It had to be an angel or possibly God himself, but the king saw it and he couldn't believe his eyes. Here's the big question. What's the fire in your life? Maybe it's peer pressure at school, or trying to fit in, or standing up for what you believe in when everyone else disagrees. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego showed us that trusting God can bring peace. When the situation seems impossible, God was with them in the fire, and he will be with you too through whatever challenge you face. Here are a few questions to think about. Have you ever had a tough decision that went against what your friends or others were doing? How did you handle it? What are some ways you can trust God more when life gets tough? How can you stand strong in your faith when others around you aren't? Some things to think about this week. Think about a situation where you need to trust God more. It could be a test coming up, a conflict with a friend, or even just dealing with stress at school. Pray about it and see how God shows up for you in your fiery furnace. Now for this week's TikTok challenge. I need you to recreate a scene of you walking through a fire. Yes, walking through the fire. And of course, use some fun filters, but just show how you stay calm and trust God like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Use the hashtag Trusting God Challenge. Hashtag Trusting God Challenge. And tag your friends to share their moments as well. I also want you to hashtag GBTAC Intermediate Class. GBTAC Intermediate Class. And intermediate is spelled INTERMEDIATE. I look forward to seeing your videos. And I'm so glad you joined me today. Until next week, God bless.